Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Limited Time Only. I'm your host, Spencer, and I'm joined by my co-host, Danny. What's up, man?
Nothing much, just
crushing
enjoying life, right?
Yeah, and just crushing it. All right, well, let's get right into this. Don't forget that this podcast is brought to you by our sponsor over at GameGrid. You can check them out at play@gamegrid.com. And we really appreciate the guys over at GameGrid. They also sponsor our stream that you can check out every Thursday, starting again next week with me and Austin. But let's dive in and talk about some Limited, dude. So first thing that we do on every show is we do a pick two, where we pick two cards from a booster pack after pick one. Ourselves got a little lucky, and by that I mean not that lucky at all. We actually first picked a Nature's Way, so the pack was a little unexciting.
Nature's Way it's fine. A solid card though.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's good.
It's fine. All right, so our first option is Renegade Freighter for pick two.
Renegade Freighter is probably one of the better commons to pick first.
I don't feel that way literally at all.
Really?
Yeah. So as much as I love aggressive decks in this format, I just feel like Renegade Freighter traps me into an aggressive deck.
Yeah, but if that's a trap that you're wanting to fall into, then it's probably a good card to take. Like, I think aggressive decks are strong in this format, for sure.
I do too, and that being said, it's going to be better than most of the cards.
Yeah, like, it's one of the better commons, for sure.
Sure. Next we have Cathartic Reunion. This card is a red and 1 for a sorcery that you discard 2 cards and draw 3 cards. This card's filler that you sometimes play.
Yeah, it seems like you don't run like low on playables very often, and that's generally when I would play this type of card.
Right, if you get kind of stuck playing this card, your deck's not the best.
Or it means that you have a bomb. Like, if you have a Sky Console flagship, then this card actually gets a lot better, because then almost any game that you cast your bomber, you're going to win.
Sure,
so.
Absolutely. Next up, we have Welding Sparks. This card's 2 and a red for an instant. Deal X damage to target creature, where X is the number of artifacts you control plus 3.
Yeah, this card's great. Probably the best common in the set. It's super powerful.
I would definitely take this over Renegade Freighter.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than Renegade Freighter.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, yep, that's where I would start moving that towards the front. We have Takedown, which, by the way, is a sorcery.
Seems really bad.
Did you know that?
I did not.
I didn't either. I'm quite confident I've cast this card as an instant.
It was not on Magic Online.
It was not on Magic Online. I'm just a cheater, though, apparently. Yeah. All right. Good to know. Next, we have Mind Rot. We're probably not taking that here. No. Hijack. Not really interested. Gear Seeker Serpent.
This is probably my favorite blue common, and it's one of the better ones. Probably top 2 or 3. It's really powerful in the right deck. You don't want to take it early, though. You normally want to see that archetype's open and then take lots of them.
Next, we have Built to Smash. This card is an instant that gives a creature plus attacking creature +3/+3. And if it's an artifact, it gets trample.
Yeah, this is one of the more important combat tricks in the set for its color. Like, Built to Smash is very important in red because red is very aggressive, and you need this effect to be able to push through damage in a lot of situations.
Next, we have Chandra's Pyrohelix.
Another good red common.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Is it a good red common?
It's good. It's not great. It's good.
Okay, so it is good.
Uh-huh.
So I was right.
About what?
Was it this not you? It was either you or
Well,
me.
I definitely diss on Chandra's Pyrohelix. Like, it's fine. But, so, I think what happened is I said, a lot of times I would rather just play a 2-drop than play a removal spell that can only kill 2 drops.
So that we were talking about impeccable timing.
Yes, yeah, that's the one.
But like
Chandra's Pyrohelix has a little bit more upside. It has it can get a 2-for-1, so it's more enticing to me. But
we're in such interesting places in the format. So I would obviously not take this over Welding Sparks.
No, Welding Sparks is way better. Yeah. But Welding Sparks can actually kill a creature that matters, which is good.
Next up, we have Terror of the Fairgrounds. Do you want to take a Cobble Brute?
I do not.
No Cobble Brute for you?
Nope.
Essence Extraction for our first uncommon. Black 1, instant, deal 3 damage, target creature, you gain 3 life.
So this card it's probably more powerful than Welding Sparks, but the mana cost is restrictive.
I I would probably take Welding Sparks over it just because of the mana cost. It's so easy to get Welding Sparks into your deck in this format.
You can play Welding Sparks in non-red decks. Like, you can be blue-green Welding Sparks and, like, totally fine.
Next up, we have Overchased Dragster.
This card's good. Like, it's impressed me a lot. I wasn't initially sure how good it would be, but it gets in a good amount of damage a lot more often than it would seem.
Then we have Bomat Bazaar Barge.
These two cards have kind of switched places. Like, I was very high on Bomat Bazaar Barge initially, and now I'm a lot lower on it.
So I'm not like high on any of the vehicles right now, other than like Smuggler's Copter.
Sure.
But I think that these cards are all fine. All of the vehicles in this pack are like the playable ones.
Yeah, they're the top tier common, uncommon ones for sure.
I would still take Welding Sparks out of this pack, though. I think it's just so easy to get a deck that can play Welding Sparks whether you're right or not, because of all the fixing in the format.
It is interesting that there's 3 vehicles in this deck that are all playable and good, or in that pack.
Yeah.
But
the rare is gone, so.
Yeah, I would assume it's Welding Sparks, but.
All right, so we've picked our Welding Sparks, and now how lucky can we get? Did we get past a bomber? No, we got past a rare. We have Herald of the Fair. Probably not taking that. Nope. We have Salivating Gremlins.
Cards like it's good in the right decks.
I love it in red black.
Yeah, no, that's its best deck. Red black for sure.
Cathartic Reunion, Ether Trade Winds. I don't think we're taking either of those. Takedown. We're not taking that here.
Nope.
Barcata Club Security. This is a card that you recommended Casey play in Modern.
Yeah, I compared it to Brimez when he was saying that he wanted to play Brimez in his deck.
Yeah. So obviously, since you recommended that somebody played a Modern, you take that here, right?
No, this limited format is different than Modern for sure.
Next up, we have Eager Construct. Where have you landed on Eager Construct?
It being an artifact is huge. This format, you need to make early plays. So having 2 and 3 drops is critical so that you can beat the aggro decks, even if you're not personally playing an aggro deck. So Eager Construct has the synergies of being an artifact, and it fills a necessary 2-drop slot in many decks that might need it. So you play it almost every time that you draft it, and you draft it relatively higher than you would think.
Spontaneous Artist.
It's fine.
It's okay.
It's really good with Sky Console Flagship.
That's true. Okay. We're going to skip to the uncommons and then the rare. So we're going to go to Gear Shift Ace. This is 1 and a white for a 2/1 first strike. Excuse me. That when it crews a vehicle, that vehicle gains first strike.
This card's it's good. It has its weaknesses. I think that in most sets nowadays, they've worked in ways to punish 1 toughness and then included creatures that are very good at 1 toughness.
Yeah, that have specifically 1 toughness. I agree.
Yeah, it's been a pattern for quite a number of sets where it's just like 1 toughness is always a weakness, but they give you reasons why you want to play the card anyway. And this is one of the examples where it's very powerful, but it does, like, if your opponent has a subtle strike, then you're going to feel real dumb. But
the rare here is Gear Peer Ori.
Yeah, it's not super playable or remotely playable.
Not even a little. But we do have 2 artifacts at uncommon and common. The common that we have left is a Prophetic Prism.
The card is important in certain decks, but
I actually think this is the second best common in the set.
I mean, I haven't played with it a lot, and I think a lot of players that have been playing limited Magic for a long time have higher expectations for the card than I do, just because it's a card that's overperformed in past sets, and it hasn't lived up to that hype for me.
What? This card is like the best it's ever been.
I don't know. Maybe I just had higher expectations than I was supposed to.
Did you come into this like Avatar, like when people were like, "This is the best movie of all time," and like you like walk out and you're like, "Did I just watch Ferngully?"
So I just heard multiple pros saying like, "Prophetic Prism's the best." Like you played in every deck, it fixes your mana even when you're just a 2-color deck, and like sometimes it's happened, but mainly it's just been in my 3-color green decks.
All right, your next option here is Snare Thopter.
Yeah, I would probably take this card. Snare Thopter it's a really, really powerful. And we have like a Welding Sparks, which we want to like. Artifact synergy is nothing in this format. It's actually pretty good to have. And so, yeah, I'd probably lean towards the Snare Thopter. I think there were some other commons that were decent, but
I would take Snare Thopter out of this as well, and just move in. I mean, like if we're getting a third pick Snare Thopter, like
we could have quite the number of artifacts. We could at this point we could have almost had no colored spells in our picks and be very happy.
Yep.
Which is that's something to consider. Where there's like if we would have picked Freighter, Snare Thopter, then we would be like we'd be in a really different and like good position in the draft. But not that we're in a bad position here. But
all right, well let's move on to our next segment, which is our biggest movers. My biggest mover is Gear Seeker Serpent.
Why?
So like I thought the card was like pretty overrated in the format, the entire format.
Okay.
And like I've come to the conclusion that I'm wrong, and that it's like just a really good finisher.
It's so good.
Like,
I mean, blue is weak.
So like the first time that I lost to it, it jumped from like this is like dirtily and like not worth to like, oh, this is playable. And then people were like, this is like the best blue card in the set.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe because all the blue cards are bad, but
yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, I like the excitement.
So the reason why I like it is because I always draft my blue decks to be very slow, very controlling, and I want them to win the late game. And when you have like 2 or 3 Gear Seeker Serpents, you just don't need any other win conditions. You can just draft your dirtily defensive artifact deck and play a couple Gear Seeker Serpents, and they will single-handedly win the game for you. In pretty quick, just like 4 turns. You just boom.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest mover. What about you? What is your biggest mover this week?
So for me, it's probably Harsh Scrutiny. It's the black sorcery where you get to look at target opponent's hand and choose a creature, make them discard it, and then you get to scry one. So the decks that I like this card in are any of the black aggro decks. So specifically like black-red, or it's good in like any deck that you're trying to curve out, which is most in this format. Just because if you're on the play and you go Harsh Scrutiny turn 1, you can either take their bomb, or you can just, oftentimes what I do is just take their curve creature. So if their opening hand has a 2-drop, a 4-drop, and a 5-drop, you just take the 2-drop, and then it's very likely they're not going to do anything for a long time, and you get a ton of damage in. What?
But did you draw it?
Then, so, albeit I haven't drawn it this week. So, late game. I haven't drawn. So, I haven't had that bad experience in my mouth. But
okay.
Even if you do, you still scry. And if you scry a land to the bottom, it almost cycled. Like, right? Like, it does something at all points in the game. And I found out that, like, both players have cards.
So, it's funny that you would say this, because, like, when I look at like cards that I could play in that slot, that same slot, there's the red sorcery that you make a creature not be able to block.
Renegade Tactics?
Yeah, which is like almost unplayable. Like
I mean,
and like it seems so much better than Harsh Scrutiny to me.
So Harsh Scrutiny so in general it's instead of playing a 17th land, I play a Harsh Scrutiny in my 16 land aggro deck. And it is a card that can just win a game, which is a really powerful effect in Limited, where, like, in general, it's a low power level format, and you're running very similar powered cards into each other, and then sometimes people have bombs. And so it's a card that can answer a bomb, it can throw off a curve, like, it has a very high ceiling of what it can do, and that's worth it to me for the, like, lower floor than your typical
just interesting
card.
To me that's your big... I don't see it, but
as a biggest mover, it went from not one that I like to play to one that I actively want one.
Okay,
I think
interesting.
It's good. Yeah.
Let's move on to our training cards. Every week on the podcast, we're going to talk about something that's hopefully going to make you a little bit better at Limited Magic. This week, we're going to talk about combat tricks in Kaladesh. All right, so I asked you what the best trick was.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, quote, I don't think there is one.
What I meant by that is that they are very unique, and they fill different roles in different decks. And so saying which one's the best is hard, just because they're just doing very, very different things.
I think it's Subtle Strike. I think that, like, even though it's funny because you said to me, you're like, well, like, you don't want combat tricks in your black deck. I'm like, well, I think the best deck is black red aggro.
Yeah. And so now, but even in black red aggro, Built to Smash is much better than Subtle Strike.
Is that true?
Like, if you have the black red artifact aggro, Built to Smash is the
They're
card
both
that you
really
want.
good.
Yeah, they're both good. But like 1 mana is huge. Like 1 and 2 mana is a big jump.
Yeah, that's true. It is a huge jump. I'm just saying, like, I think that it's Subtle Strike.
So I think Subtle Strike has the highest
Upside.
floor. So like the worst Subtle Strike is better than the worst of the other tricks, if that makes sense. Like it always has a very good effect, always gives you a counter at the very least. Like but even like I've had black decks that wanted Rush of Vitality more than Subtle Strike.
Okay, well let's go into the tricks that people should probably worry about. I have written down Subtle Strike, Blossoming Defense, Built to Smash, Built to Last,
Ornamental Courage,
and then you just mentioned
Rush of Vitality.
Rush of Vitality.
Yeah.
And I think those are the big combat tricks.
Yeah, those are like the stereotypical combat tricks. Other ones can have effects like there's like Make Obsolete or Inspired Charge, but like those are the main ones that when you think of a combat trick, that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, they're just like removal spells or sideboard cards even.
Yeah, yep, for sure.
So what are the aggressive tricks? So for me, they're Built to Smash and Built to Last are like the aggressive tricks.
Yeah, those are the ones where you want that in a deck that you're trying to curve out, and you want really, really cheap effect so that you can play your Built to Last or Built to Smash and then deploy another threat in the same turn. That's like the big upside of playing these cards.
Yeah, and the Built to Last is it's the new thing that they do at Wizards of the Coast. They like put a 1-mana white
2/2. Yeah.
Yep. +2/+2 combat trick,
Strength
or
arms,
like a defense that has a defensive ability of some kind. Like it's the new thing.
Yep.
It's the new hot take.
That is the going rate, is white +2/+2.
Well, not even then. Like it would like there was white +1/+1 with like I think it gave +1/+1 protection from a color. Then there was God's Willing that was scry 1 protection from a color. Mm-hmm. God's Willing being like the best of all of these.
I didn't play a lot during them, but
yeah,
I've heard
like,
good things.
It was like give my flying monster protection from your flying monster, attack you for 8.
Yeah.
Good game.
Yeah.
But I think that like these two combat tricks really speak to, okay, so like I probably want to be attacking and deploying cheap threats, just like you said.
Mm-hmm. The one comment I have about Built to Last is that I really only like it in my red-white deck. That's the only deck that I want to be playing it, just because in white-black, I like to draft the mid-rangey, just grind my opponent out deck, which you don't need combat tricks for. And then like white-blue is a...
You could probably play it in the go-wide deck, though.
You can, but +2/+2 on one creature in your white-black Inspired Charge deck is what you want. You only want
agree.
Inspired.
I'm just saying, like, if you're short on playables...
Sure, but so a trick with the Inspired Charge deck is you want 3 or 4 even Inspired Charges, and you really want 3. And then that takes up a lot of your flex slots because you just need to play so many creatures to make your Inspired Charges work.
That's true.
You just shouldn't be playing a Built to Last.
And then for defensive tricks, I have Blossoming Defense, Subtle Strike, and Rush of Vitality. And then Ornamental Courage.
Ornamental Courage is like the defensive trick, I think.
Yeah. Ornamental Courage being like, untap my guy, give it +1/+3.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite trick in the set. No surprise to anybody. Like, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that I like untapping my creatures for small amounts of green mana and blowing people out.
Yeah, it's definitely a tempo swing, and it lets you people are used to getting blown out by the built to last and built to smash. That's something that they expect and they're used to. And so when you get them with it, you both know what you were signing up for. When you get someone with Ornamental Courage, they did not know what was going to happen to them. But it comes at the cost of sometimes they get you and they get their 2-for-1 because it's on their turn. But
yeah. One thing that I will say about Rush is that Rush of Vitality is it is a defensive combat trick in one way, but I actually think that it's defensive in a strange way. I think that it's defensive when you're attacking as well, because like that life swing is like
it's huge.
Yeah.
So the Rush of Vitality is like it's the trick that I like in my controlling deck, like a deck that kind of is lacking the early game and I feel like I'm going to get behind a lot. Rush of Vitality is the trick that you want to play because it can give you the life that you need.
So you can like put it on your 4/6.
Yeah. You Rush of Vitality or Dakara, whatever, and then you gain 5 life, and then you're out of reach. Like they had a chance to win the game, and now they do not. But
yeah, I think that's, and especially like when they're like they don't, especially like when you're giving them the opportunity to game block, right? You're like attack with my 4/6. Like if you're gonna game block now, and they're like,
sure.
Now I have to decide like, but if I don't, and he has Rush of Vitality, then he gains 5, and then if I attack, he can attack again, and like then I'm in this really bad racing situation.
Yeah.
But if I block and he has Rush of Vitality,
yeah,
I also get blown out.
Yeah. So I think one of the big appeals of Rush of Vitality is that when you're playing black, everyone expects you to have Subtle Strike because it's the perceived best trick.
Right.
So when you actually have Rush of Vitality, your opponent can not play around it correctly. They can very often make misplays into your Rush of Vitality because they're expecting Subtle Strike.
So when you think of combat tricks like Blossoming Defense, I've heard a lot of people say that like this card doesn't play like a combat trick, which is true, but it's like a combat trick. Like let's be real.
Its worst case is a combat trick, which is a good worst case. Its best case is counter a 5-mana removal spell.
Right.
Which that's a really powerful thing for your 1-mana combat trick to do.
1-mana green spell.
Normally when you're paying 1 mana, you only get the tempo, and it can only kill a slightly bigger creature. But when it's countering premium removal spells, that's more than what you're paying for.
Why do people say Subtle Strike? Like myself, why do I say the Subtle Strike is likely the best combat trick? I mean, you talked about its floor. What is its upside and what is its floor?
So it's the most like when you read that card, I guess Borrowed Malevolence is a card that overperformed in the set right before this one, right? And so it did a similar thing for more mana and slightly worse than what Subtle Strike does. And everyone got higher and higher on that card, and so Subtle Strike coming into the format is like, it's a good trick. It's really, really powerful effect. And so I guess it's one of those tricks that it also just gets its 2-for-1 in so many situations, and it just is like overtly powerful, and it had such an easy comparison from the last set that people could understand and see how good it is right off the bat.
I think that that a lot of times when a card looks underwhelming and then performs really well, match players are prone to hyperbole.
Yeah.
The thing is that like I don't think Subtle Strike has lost it.
No. It really is great. It's probably the best one. Like it's really, really powerful.
But at the same time, like when I like there are people that would say that it's almost a removal spell.
Yeah, which Subtle Strike really isn't. It normally just trades evenly. Like it normally gives you a counter on your 3-drop and kills their 3-drop. Like that's what it does a lot of times. Sometimes it gets the 2-for-1 where you kill their Gear Shift Ace and blow out their block, but that's pretty rare. But the fact that it turns your 3-drop into like a pseudo 4-drop forever is that's a big effect. One counter means a lot more than what you would normally think.
So, who is favored when you're using a combat trick?
I always like to be attacking when I'm using combat tricks. And the reason why is that when like probably 90+% of most limited decks are sorcery speed, and so your opponent either is normally going to tap out on their turn. Like most turns they're going to use their mana. And so when you're attacking and having a combat trick in your hand, then it's normally lower risk than when you're on their combat and they haven't used their mana yet for that turn. And you can, if they do hold up mana, you get the option of just passing and not exposing your combat trick to a 2-for-1 and just developing your board instead. And then they've then wasted their mana in most scenarios unless they have an instant speed card draw or a removal spell or that they're just going to use as a 1-for-1. So when you're on the offense with combat tricks, you get more flexibility where you never have to really expose yourself. When you're using them on defense, you're always exposed to a 2-for-1.
I think that in a lot of ways you're right. And I think that inherently Magic favors people who are blocking over attacking.
It does.
And they've even in this set, they've tried to mitigate they try to make combat tricks better on defense, I think. Mm-hmm. When I look at the set, I look at some of the things that you would typically do for tempo. Mm-hmm. Like there's not a ton of cheap removal outside of welding sparks.
Yeah.
At instant speed. And then you have things like the bounce spell of the set only bounces tapped creatures.
Yeah, that's a little awkward.
So inherently, I think that they've done a lot to help the blockers in this set, which is good because they built a smash, which is very, very good in your aggressive decks.
And unplayable if you are not very, very aggressive.
Right, and you specifically have to be attacking. So
yeah.
I think that in this set specifically, it's pretty close.
I can definitely see what you mean, where they've given you options when you're on the offense I guess when you're on the defense, and how do I want to phrase this? So, like the blue bounce spell is a great example where it's a really, really cheap way that you can only blow them out when their combat trick is used aggressively. So if that is the interaction that they have in their hand, and they go for an aggressive combat trick, then you can punish it like you would expect. But if they're using it as a blocker, as a blocking combat trick, then the blue doesn't work. And so you can play around their blue bounce spell in this format if you're using it as a defensive combat trick, which it's strange. It doesn't come up very often.
Yeah, I think that this format is interesting in a few ways. One of them is how divisive the format is for people as far as what's good and what's bad.
Yeah.
For me, I don't want to play blue card. I don't want a blue card in my deck. When we were building our seal pool this week, I was like, oh man, so these blue cards are pretty decent. But then I looked at them and I looked at my blue seal pool. And I was like,
yeah, blue is it's different. You're you have to go into a constructed mindset to play blue, where normally that's not something that you need to do in limited. Normally you can play curve of creatures, play combat tricks, play removal spells, beat down, curve out better than your opponent does. Play better than they do. And
one of the things about this format that for me, I am all about the aggro decks in this format. Mm-hmm. Because I my opponents are just gonna play a turn 2 prophetic prism, and then I'm all right, well, GG, bro.
Yeah, it makes sense that the blue decks also they if they are built correctly, though, they're not skipping the early turns. The blue decks that are built well are playing Thriving Turtles and Consulate Skygates, and you have to be doing things early because the aggressive decks are really powerful. The blue decks, you just have to know what you're supposed to be doing.
How much of that do the combat tricks play into this? This format has 2 combat tricks for 1 mana that pump your guy 2, one that pumps it 3, one that gives it lifelink and indestructible, one that makes blocking impossible. There's so many combat tricks throughout those 4 colors. I mean, I think that white does white have 1?
White
and red only have 1. Mm-hmm. And then black and black and green both have 2.
Yeah, one's at uncommon, but yeah.
At both, right? Because
yeah. No. The black ones are both common.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is another situation that I came up when my first draft deck at the Pro Tour looked great. But then when I was playing the matches, all of my removal spells were Hunt the Weaks and Nature's Way, which are powerful cards. And I had a good green-blue splash, like a green-blue deck splashing something. But the problem I kept running into is that my opponents were playing these vehicles that were hard for me to deal with because all of my removal spells were sorcery speed. Like, they were, in a vacuum, powerful cards that in lots of scenarios give you lots of tempo and are what you want to be doing, but I was running into threats that I just couldn't answer with my sorcery speed green removal spells. And so these tricks aren't as exposed to instant speed removal as you're used to in older formats. Really, as you go back in time, all of these combat tricks, if you talk to older players, they don't like them as much because they're used to formats that have
lightning bolt and
shocks.
Doomblade.
Yeah, lightning bolt, Doomblade, even just shock is is better than what we get nowadays mostly. And so they're used to these tricks being super exposed, and they're just not as exposed.
They're not
anymore.
exposed anymore.
Like, they are now just really, really efficient and easy ways to get tempo over your opponent, whereas it used to be lightning bolt and Doomblade, and those effects were the ways that you could get tempo and blow out
really good tempo.
Yeah, and you would also just blow out players that were exposing themselves to these cards, which is I think it's a good step because it's making these historically unplayable effects playable and making formats a lot more
ways
interesting.
Too. We just talked about offense and defense and being willing to play these cards.
Yeah.
So overall, I think that the combat tricks in Kaladesh are actually quite good, and I think that they're something that you should consider taking a little bit earlier than you might want to because of those biases that I think you might have from the past.
Yeah, I think this is especially true for anyone that's played the game for a long time. Just because if you were a good player 10 years ago, you just were not playing combat tricks. Or if you were, you had to do it in very delicately. But now you can really just kind of run them out in a lot of scenarios and be pretty safe. Or your opponent has to hold up at least 3 mana to kill any substantially sized creature. And sometimes, if they're in black, they just have to hold up 5 mana. And then if you just don't expose your combat tricks to these lots of open mana, then you're not going to get blown out, and you can just keep developing your board, and you're really going to profit from the cheap and powerful effects that what you can get out of them. But.
Awesome. Let's move on to our final segment, and that's how would you build it? So we posted a seal pool in the Constructor Criticism Facebook group. You can check out the Constructor Criticism Facebook group. Every week we're going to post a seal pool, and we're going to discuss it. This one was a toughie.
Yeah, this seal pool was really interesting just because it had the typical sealed problem where you have bombs in different colors and you want to play all of them. But I think this seal pool actually had the answers and was worth it to just try to play all of them.
And I took a little bit of a different approach.
So this seal pool, the 2 Prophetic Prisms and the 2 Wild Wanderers and the Aether Hub were reasons enough for me to build a greedier deck that just had a higher power level.
Yeah, so I'm going to put the link to the seal pool once again in the show notes of this podcast. Mm-hmm. You can check it out and look at it with us. But here's how I built the deck, and then Danny, you can go into how you built the deck.
Okay.
So I think that I still would end up cutting a card from the deck. I'm not sure which one, but here's what I have right now. Right now I have 2 Prophetic Prisms, 1 Snare Thopter, 2 Wild Wanderers, 1 Thriving Rhino, 1 Riparian Tiger, 2 Pima Outriders, 1... I don't know how to say that word. The Seed Sculptor.
Kajar Seed Sculptor.
1 Appetite for the Unnatural, 1 Uvaya Lifecrafter, 1 Thriving Rats, 1 Subtle Strike, 1... I can't read this screen.
Which one are you looking at?
The squad.
The Malphus squad?
Malphus squad, thank you. Live Fast might be the card I end up cutting. Lawless Broker, 1 Dakar Scavenger, 1 Die Young, 1 Ambitious Etherborn, 1 Noxious Gearhulk, 1 Malfunction, 1 Shrewd Negotiations, and 1 Fairground Warden.
So mine was very similar. I was playing almost all the same green cards. I also included I guess I can just read it through it. So I have the Renegade Freighter, 2 Prophetic Prisms, a Snare Thopter, a Panharmonicon, 2 Wild Wanderers, Thriving Rhinos, Sage of Shalia's Claim, Riparian Tiger, 2 Pima Outrider, Kajar Seed Sculptor, a Highspire Artisan, Appetite for the Unnatural, an Avaya, Pashiri Sage Lifecrafter, the Noxious Gearhulk, a Shrewd Negotiation, and then Glint Sleeve Artisan, Aviary Mechanic, Visionary Augmenter, Fairgrounds Warden, and Aerial Responder.
Yeah, the important thing to know here is that I am playing 2 islands, 1 plains, 1 ether hub, 6 forest, and 6 swamps.
Yeah, and I'm playing, I think, 7 forests, 6 plains, 1 island, and 2 swamps.
That's way too many lands.
Something like that. 13, 14,
7
15, 16.
forests?
7 plus 6 plus 3 is 16 plus the ether hub, 17. No, that's right. Yeah, so 7 forests, 6 plains, 1 island. You're
switching
two
them.
swamp.
I
Yeah,
see.
yeah. It's just
I'm like looking at your screen, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not what I see at all. No, so one thing that I want to talk about is your choice to. You have a couple interesting choices in your deck. You have this really slow, grindy deck, and you're playing Renegade Freighter.
Yeah, so there would be a chance that I would cut it, but I think that the card is just powerful enough that if you play it on curve, they're just going to have to trade with it, or they're going to take too much damage. And even as a blocker, I've had it come up really often when I am being defensive, where I can just animate my Renegade Freighter and trade for a 3 or a 4 drop.
Why are cards like Shrewd Negotiation something you want to splash?
So in Sealed is a different animal than Draft, for sure. And the reason why is because everyone opens 6 packs, and then they play their best card. So, for example, our best card in this Sealed pool was Noxious Gearhulk. And even though I decided not to play black because I didn't think the commons weren't as strong, I'm going to play the Noxious Gearhulk. And if I didn't have all the fixing, I would just play black, because any game that I draw Noxious Gearhulk, I'm very likely to win. And so every person in a Sealed tournament is doing that same thing. They are opening their packs, and they're going to play their best card, regardless of the power of that color.
There's a few things that I find funny in your deck, and I want to talk about that.
Okay.
Because this is a very Danny deck.
Yes.
So you have Panharmonicon, right?
Uh-huh.
So, like, what's your dream here?
Well, clearly the dream is to Noxious Gearhulk 2 creatures with my Panharmonicon.
Okay.
But honestly, so with the Panharmonicon, the reason why I think it's worth it is I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 13, 14, 15, 16. I have 16 Enter the Battlefield effects.
Yeah, I almost played it.
Yeah, so
in fact, you could probably convince me to cut Snare Thopter and Live Fast and still play it.
Mm-hmm. Nearly every creature in this build of the deck features Panharmonicon. And so in Sealed especially, I like to build my deck so that I can, if I were to flip my deck over and compare it to my opponent's deck, that my deck would win. I've heard that from other people as a way to judge how to build a deck, and I've had a lot of success doing that. Just because since you're not drafting, you're not going to get as nice of a curve, and games devolve into who draws and plays their bombs more. And so unconditional removal and bombs take priority over almost everything. And Panharmonicon can almost function like a bomb in this deck, because when all
of your creatures get significantly better.
Yeah, exactly. It turns my Visionary Augmenter from a 4/3, like a 2/1 with 2 servos, to 4 servos. And then
you can't hit the table.
I know, right? All right. And then another. So we were talking about Shrewd Negotiation and a reason why this effect is really powerful is because when everyone plays their bombs, you want to take them, and an expensive mind control is still great because people are going to have these very strong creatures that you want to steal and you need answers to.
Awesome. So I do want to say that there were a few other things that I did think about. I thought about Jund. I thought about Bug. I thought about rug. So the simple was definitely really hard for me to build.
It was tough. There were lots of options. Most of the colors were powerful and different, so it was interesting trying to decide which combination.
So feel free to leave a comment. Tell us how you would build the deck. And Danny, where can people find you if they want to talk?
So on Facebook, it's Daniel Cathro, and then Twitter, I think it's DJ Cathro.
It is.
Okay, good. DJ, and then it's CATHRO.
You can find me on Facebook at Spencer Stephen Howland in the Constructive Criticism Facebook group. You can find me on Twitter at Spencer13H. You can find the podcast every week on mtgcast.com and constructivecriticism.com. Don't forget to get our sponsor at I almost said the wrong one. At Game Grid, at Play at Game Grid. And you can also go to patreon.com/ccmtg, become a patron of our network, and we would really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you guys all next week.
Thanks.